Hi, this is Dr. Ben Morrill. Welcome to episode 131 of Reptile Genetics Weekly. I'm a little tired. You might see it in my eyes. We've been traveling, but it was a lot of fun. It was at Tinley this weekend. So hello once again to everyone that I saw there, and really nice to see lots of people again and meet lots of new people as well. It was really great experience, lots of fun. And we'll show a few pictures briefly. We'll try to keep it brief. And as far as updates go for samples, we should have the normal results going out this week: fast test and sex determination, and then panels are probably still a couple weeks out at this point. But yeah, let's see. And like we promised before, we are going to be talking about potentially having a label for 33% POS super animals, which might be a little mind bending for some of you if you haven't ever thought about this, which I think probably a lot of people haven't. So it'll be fun to talk about that. We've got a couple of guests to talk about that, and not only what it means, but also potentially how to get it added to more markets. So that'll be cool. But yeah, Kayla, how are you doing?
Hey Ben, I'm doing good. I make sure I muted myself. There we go. So I'm great. I got home at about midnight yesterday from Tinley, which really wasn't bad. What time did you end up getting home, Ben?
About one.
About one. Okay, not it could be worse. I like hibernated until about 11 a.m. this morning, and I had a blast. Honestly, it was a great time. Loved seeing Krista. We realized this year that we've known each other for about 18 years. I'm only 30, so that's been over half of my life that I've known her. We met as kids online, so that's why we refer to each other as like our screen names. So I call her Memo. She calls me Allie. It's very cute. And so, poor Ben had to navigate that, but this weekend.
Makes it hard for me to remember her name since you didn't call her name very often.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe never.
Maybe once or twice when I was introducing her to other people. But yeah. But we had such a good time. Here, let me pull up our pictures here. There's our nice little table setup we have. We handed out all the business cards, had some amazing conversations with folks, and of course, like the animals that we saw were amazing. Somebody walked up with, or Kita with, I think that's spotted snake. It's got spotted scales. That's it. Had despite this picture, a very friendly tokay gecko, granite piebald tokay gecko, which I didn't know they could be granite piebald or friendly, which was very nice. And he was a very good boy. He just didn't like the camera at first. And like some nice dogs. There's an acceptable amount of puppy dogs there at Tinley. That guy was very sleepy. Amazing animals. Krista got herself her first lychee, which was very exciting. And I got prints. We saw some really fun taxidermy there, which these cute little, they're mice. It's mouse art. Jay has mixed feelings about this, but it's fine. Lots of
my girls thought what was the one? It was the singer.
The singer.
Do you remember which one that was?
I don't.
Chapel Rodent. That's what it was.
Chapel Rodent. No. Oh, that's hilarious. I got to see Juggernaut Reptiles, this blood python, a super druid. That's like a $20,000 animal, and they were sweet enough to let me hold him. He was gorgeous. And there's their logo as well. They're amazing. I've been following them for years, and when I saw that super druid, I was like, oh my god, this is like meeting a celebrity. I've been seeing that thing online for years. Well, I guess years now. So that was fun. I got my short tail fix at Tinley. This pretty slender snouted African slender snouted crocodile. I didn't catch what her name was, but she was there with, what was it? I think it's Wildwood or Wildwood Conservancy, but they do crocodilian conservation. And so we got to see a whole bunch of really cool stuff. They were at the table right across from us. So I felt very fortunate to, learn about critically endangered crocodilians from these guys. And it was crazy. It was awesome. And of course, just all the folks we got to see this weekend was just awesome. So let's go ahead and bring on our guests. Of course, we have Travis, our friendly local mad scientist, who is a very common friend on our show. So thank you again for joining us today, Travis.
Well, always happy to be here.
He's also a geneticist, so he and Ben can like meet on even ground and amaze us with their knowledge.
Nerd out.
Nerd out. Yes, exactly.
That's the truth.
Yeah, and of course, and joining us with only 30 minutes of like heads up that he's joining us in the first place is the wonderful David Zuladze of the Morph Market dev team. So thank you so much for joining us, David.
It's nice to be here, and thanks for inviting.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for hopping in on such short notice. So what we wanted to talk about today, well, actually, no, before I get ahead of myself, let's can you tell us a little bit about yourself and like how'd you end up with the Morph Market team? Like what's who is David?
Okay, so I'm a tech guy with a large technical background in software development. I started working with Morph Market around 3 or 4 years ago. And since then, slowly I find myself interested in genetics. It's really amazing and fascinating thing. So yeah, that's in short. And in other words, what you see on the Morph Market, I'm a backstage guy who is doing things there to let it happen. So yeah,
you keep the wheels on the wagon.
He's one of our wizards.
One of the wizards, exactly. Yeah.
Right on.
Awesome. And so you've, from what I understand, over time working with Morph Market, you kind of gain an interest in genetics because you see it everywhere on there.
Yeah, exactly. So, and besides that, I love understanding what I'm doing as a software developer. You need to understand, you need to deep dive in the industry you are working for. So that's on the one side, and on the other side, it is just interesting, to see everything, how it is happening, what's going on in the industry, which was really new and something exotic for me, to say so. Also, it's and then I'm reading a bit here and there about how things are happening, and that's it.
Yeah,
cool.
Awesome. It's honestly. I remember when I first started getting into reptile genetics in the first place, it was like stepping into an entirely different world that I didn't know existed. And true. It's so much fun. It's like drinking in knowledge through a fire hose and overwhelming. But and even once you do have a grip on it, well, our show is all about the weird and crazy things you find or misunderstand about genetics, and learning or relearning those things. So, So last week we talked about we hinted at how we would be talking about, quote, 33% possible supers, like super leopards or super tessera. And so this was a perfect opportunity to bring David on, because how could that be applied in the Morph Market world? But before we do that, we'll have Ben and Travis talk about what on earth that is. What is a 33% pos super?
All right. So to start out with, and I think, did you say it was episode 114 where we went through these modes of inheritance?
Yep.
If you want a deeper dive and like a either remembering or the first time going through modes of inheritance, you can go to episode 114 and do that. But yeah, this is just the way that a trait, in this case, a leopard and a ball python, or tessera and a corn snake, how that trait, that look, or that phenotype, those are kind of similar words to say a similar thing, how those are passed from parents to their offspring and through the generations. And there's kind of some main ways, if you're talking about a single mutation and how a trait that's caused by that single mutation, how that is passed from generation to generation. So,
yeah.
So one that we're pretty familiar with in reptile breeding is the incomplete dominant. You want to touch on this one, Travis? Just kind of remind people. This will kind of get you oriented. We think about incomplete dominance, and some people call them co-dominants. And we talked about in 114 why that's not the most correct way to do it.
There are no known.
It's not correct at all.
So yeah,
it's not pedantic. We're being accurate.
Yes. So Travis, you want to touch on that a little bit, and then we'll talk about our main topic for today.
Sure. So we're echoing back to incomplete dominant just because this is what we kind of see the most in across the hobby is incomplete dominant and then recessives, especially in the ball python world. So with incomplete dominant, what you have is a trait that shows up in a dominant fashion each generation. So if you breed it, you will see a difference between animals that carry a copy of the mutation and animals that don't. The reason it is called incomplete dominant is because when you have two copies of that gene, the phenotype changes again, and you get what we call the super form, which is just the homozygous form of the animal. So with the pastels here, a single gene animal is pastel, and a double gene animal is the super pastel. If you breed two pastels together, you can get that homozygous super pastel. And your ratio there is statistically 1 super to 2 het or single gene and 1 wild type.
And then if you go on and breed a super or homozygous pastel to a normal, then you get all pastels. So that's a way you can test and see as a breeder if something really is homozygous and incomplete dominant. If you have that super form or homozygous form, breed it to an animal that's completely normal for that trait, and you get all hets or all the single mutation form of it, then that's really kind of the test breeding to show that. So as we've just been reminded what incomplete dominant is, so as we move to dominant, this is a little different because in this case, we can't tell the difference by looking at the animal if it has 1 copy or if it has 2 copies of the mutated gene or the mutated allele, however you want to think about it. So in this case, and we'll throw snakes on top of this, make it more interesting for us because we all care about snakes, not flowers, at least most of us anyway. Maybe someone.
Hey, I care about flowers. I grow my carnivorous plants.
Hey, that's awesome.
So for Travis, we've got the flowers there, but for you snake people, we got the snakes too. I know Travis likes the snakes also.
Travis likes the snake also.
So in this case, a similar thing to what we just did with pastel, but in this case, like you see at the top there, the super leopard, and then if you breed the super leopard to a normal, you get all leopards, but the leopards look identical to the super leopards. You can't tell them apart visually. And so that's why we call it dominant, not incomplete dominant. It is completely dominant, which we just say dominant. So that having 1 copy of that leopard mutation makes it fully look like a leopard. And if you have 2 copies of it, it also fully looks like a leopard. And that's why we call that dominant. And so in this case, by looking at the babies, so if we breed a het or single copy leopard to another het or single copy leopard, we're going to get a similar thing that we just saw with the incomplete dominance. But in this case, our homozygous form looks just like our hets. And so we end up with 3 animals that look like leopards and then 1 that looks like a normal. And so that's why we're kind of suggesting that if it's something that makes sense to people in the hobby, maybe it's something we need to think through a little bit more and educate a little bit more. But, in this case, those 4 potential offspring from this breeding, 1 we can remove because we know exactly what it is. The little r, that normal, we know it has 0 copies of leopard. So that's not going to factor into our percentages because we know it's negative for leopard. But the other 3 offspring there, statistically, 2 of them should be hets and 1 should be homozygous or a super. And so that's why, that's out of 3, and 1 out of 3 should be a super, that's how we would get the 33% possible super. And so if you were going to list your animals and you had, leopard combos and they came from a sire and a dam that both had leopard in them, then right now you don't have a way to advertise to people in your ad. You don't have a way to advertise and have them be able to search and find animals that could possibly be super leopards. Now you can write it in your description, but right now we have 50% pos hets, we have 66% pos hets, but we don't have, and you could search for that. You could, look up a really cool combo and be like, hey, I want it to be, 50% pos het clown or whatever, but we don't have a way to do that with possible supers. So yeah, Kayla can show you here when you're going to list an animal for sale, or if you're doing a search, all these 50% pos hets are already in Morph Market. So you have that as something you can choose, or 66 as well. Those 66% pos hets are there. But for the few, and it's, not a lot of mutations that are dominant. So we would have possible supers, but we don't have that ability right now to be able to put in there 33% pos super leopard. And so that would just be nice to have that as another choice. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Travis, first, and then we'll go to David and kind of get his feel, what it's like to when customers, breeders come up and be like, hey, we want this added to Morph Market, kind of what that's like. I know a lot of the time it's a lot harder than any of us realize, because none of us have worked on the back end of a giant site.
Yeah.
I want to, another way to think of this, and, we like to make sure that we're offering education here. Just another good way to think of this is basically the same as if you're looking at a recessive Punnett square.
Yep.
It's just, in this case, the recessive that you're looking at is wild type. Now, if we turned that wild type animal into an albino, and those 3 leopards into normals, you change nothing about how this looks in terms of the genetic breakdown. You've got a wild type, a wild type het albino, a wild type het albino, and a visual het albino. So if you kick out the visual recessive and you've got 3 wild type looking animals, basically what we're saying is which one of those animals is a strictly wild type animal. So it's another way to look at it. If you look at it and you're like, I still don't get why we're calling this a 33% possible super. Well, it's, if you kick that visual animal out and you're left with the 3, we'd say that it's a 66% pos het for albino. Well, that other 33% that you're missing there is the one that's the possible complete normal. So in this case, 2 out of 3 will be a standard single gene leopard, and 1 out of 3 would be the super leopard. So I just wanted to throw that out as another way to look at it, because we don't all think the same. We don't all understand the same. So getting a different perspective can help you shift your perspective and maybe see it easier and better.
And if you go back to episode 114, we kind of talk about that in more detail. So that'll help connect dots. You might have to bounce back and forth between that episode and this episode to connect all the dots.
Yes, exactly. And if you're a colubrid person like me, it may help you if you look at it from like the exact same thing, exact same layout, but instead with tessera. I'm not sure which one is either one. I say tessera. In corn snakes, which is dominant. And if you have a super tessera, and we know of at least one person who we talked to at Tinley who actually suspects they have a super tessera, and they're going to breed it out to try to confirm this. So they'll be taking their suspected super tessera, pair it to a wild type, or at least a non-tessera, and see if everything comes out as tessera. Just one copy, but because it's dominant, it shows up that way. And same thing, If you pair two tesseras together that only have one copy of the mutation, you're going to get some wild types who don't have it, and then you're going to have statistically about 50% of the offspring will have one copy of tessera, and of the entire clutch, only 25% have a chance of being a super tessera. But if you're ignoring your wild types and only thinking of what carries both copies of your dominant trait, you have a 33% chance of your tesseras that they're going to be supers.
1 out of 3, so it makes it a POS super tessera.
Exactly.
Did you have anything else to add to that, Travis?
No, other than this is a topic that has had a lot more discussion on the colubrid side of things. Most of the ball python people don't seem to care about it a lot. I mean, we used to hear about the super pin, and then nobody cared about it anymore. And then we heard about the super leopard. I think Kobilka even did a few videos about it 6-7 years ago, but then it just kind of went away. Colubrid people seem to be more, they seem to care more about it. And, that's colubrid people and ball python people obviously manage their sides of the hobby differently. And so, Ben, I guess you had a conversation at Colubrid Fest where people were talking about how it would be nice to be able to see some way to have these labeled up. Or
Yes.
potentially labeled up if it was possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
and I've seen it on the Morph Market, their discussion forum or whatever it is. People have discussed it there too, for sure.
Yeah, there's a fairly long thread there about it.
Yeah, and like I get it. If you really, really love tesseras and you only want to produce tesseras, having a super tessera would be extremely valuable. Rather than producing a bunch of non-tesseras that you really don't have much use for right now in your projects. So it's the same reason we in the ball python hobby would love to have a visual monsoon instead of just a het. Even though that's a recessive. So same thing. It's about being able to accurately, or as close as possible, accurately listing what animals you've got.
So David, from the back end, if you can put that Morph Market slide up.
Yes, this is why we invited David, because he does all the back end stuff that none of us understand.
Yes.
And other than saying, I know this has been something that has been talked about on the forums and there have been discussions to work on, I can't say anything more than that. But David can definitely speak on, how feasible this is.
Yeah.
If there are complications and how they, want to tackle these complications, and also understand this is not a promise that it's going to happen, people. David and the rest of the team will do their best, but they can only do so much with the code.
So those of you watching this, if you think this would be cool to have, this would be helpful, then give us comments. Put comments below in this video. Let us know what you think. But yeah, David, so being able to have the 66% POS het, 50% POS het, if we were to add in the 33% POS super. So anytime a morph was listed as being dominant, if it could just automatically have a choice to list it also as 33% POS super, how difficult do you think that would be to get added?
Yeah. Let me say that as a trait system is kind of core of the whole site, a lot of things depend on this. Everything that needs to be done with traits is technically difficult to say so, because a lot of moving parts are there from the backend perspective. But what I wanted to say is that whatever you see in the traits list here, when you add listing or animal, also is searchable there because they are interconnected in that drop-down search drop-down. So yeah, I can say that it should be convenient and handy to be able to search some particular 33% trait rather than looking through each listing and diving into details, whether there are some commands or no, or to understand or to get into the details. Right now, I mean, the description or details of the animal is not indexed that well as traits are, because when I mention indexing, it means that the data is managed in a way that it could be looked up much easily than searched through the large bulk of text. And I just remembered that we have just recently added feature requests to our site.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. So
everybody
there are
that.
so the users are adding what they are interested, and there is upvoting, downvoting, so it has its own things happening there with the requests from the user's perspective. It is the feedback is really important for any tech type site or marketplace or whatsoever, because users are who are using that, right? So yeah.
Right.
So once again, to summarize, technically, I love to say technically everything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's could be challenging or no, but technically everything is possible. But it depends. The main thing right now is that data should be prepared well for the traits. I mean, I have heard that some animals could be more interesting to have that 33% rather than other types, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know whether it should be available for only some snakes and for others. So the data should be worked on.
Yeah, it'd probably be just the ones when like in Morphpedia or wherever, if it's there as a dominant trait, then when somebody puts it in, it, like with a leopard, it's listed as a dominant trait. When they go to list that in, then you would have that 33% POS super be
it should be available in the drop down. Yeah, because we are doing that 50% and 66% for some genes and for not having for others, but
so those are
should be worked out.
Recessives.
So data should be prepared, and then technically, as I mentioned already, everything, whenever we need to touch traits, it's challenging because on its own, the data is complicated and it should be well indexed, because a lot of search and a lot of everything is based on traits. So that's core engine of site kind of.
All right. So I guess that's the big question is, if we only care about dominant traits having that in the drop down for the 33% POS super, I guess that's the question. How hard will it be to add 33% POS super to all the dominant traits? And there's not a lot of them. So
yeah, I think it will be possible technically, because we are doing some magic behind the scenes with traits. Some of them are auto-generated based on some rules, but I was asking about, for example, I have heard that from you that ball python breeders are not that interested in having that, and I was probably asking whether it is more important for some categories, while are not interested for others. But If it is about having just added it to any dominant trait, then I think it simplifies even technical description what should be done there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way. And I honestly believe if it was there, if I was going, or if a random person, whenever this gets added, is going to add a leopard combo, and they know it came from a leopard to leopard breeding, and they go to drop down to pick, leopard, and 33% pos supers there, they'll be so happy. Oh, awesome. I can have it listed as the breeding, because that's valuable to that sets your animal apart from someone else that only had leopard on one side or the other. And okay, the most it could be is a leopard. But if I had leopard on both sides, I've taken the time to build those in my collection so I could have it on both sides. And that increases the chances of getting leopards and provides the possibility to make supers. So I think people would use it. I think, like what Travis was saying earlier, Kluber breeders have been more worried about it. But once that choice is there, I think ball python breeders would use it too.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it isn't commonly used by ball python people, I think, is just because, one, it wasn't available, and two, they tend to heavily rely on that super vernacular. The colubrid people, I tend to find, lean more towards the heterozygous homozygous identification methodology. So it's just the way each side of this hobby, tends to run things within their own little corner of the hobby. But if it were available, I don't see why people wouldn't use it. It's just it's less commonly discussed in the ball python arena. It also may partly be because with ball python people, if you remember my rant last week, there's a tendency to want to hang on to some of that bad info or incorrect info. And for the longest time, people just hung on to, it doesn't matter if there's a super or there's no such thing as a super. Like, we always heard there was no such thing as a super pin, because what was really going on was anybody that actually had a super pin back when they were fetching $20,000 a piece didn't want to talk about the fact that they had one because they were fetching $20,000 a piece. Now that, pinstripes are a $50 animal, nobody cares if they're pumping out a bunch of $50 animals versus only half a clutch of $50 animals. So the way the market drives itself within each side of the hobby tends to be a little different.
Yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, I'd say that's the main thing we'd like to get from this conversation today is you all tell us in the comments if this makes sense or if it doesn't, if you want some more information about it, or if it's, something you think you would use or you'd appreciate having available in the future. There could be other morphs that pop up in various species that are dominant. And then all of a sudden, maybe you would want to have this there and you haven't worked with a dominant trait before, but if we kind of can get that added over the next little while, David, jumps on it, makes it happen. But it sounds like if you all give us comments here and fill in the morph market where you can, as a user, let them know what features you're interested in having. Not only for this, you can do other things too. But if a bunch of people get on there and say, hey, we want 33% pos supers, then it'll probably happen faster because they'll get tired of hearing us. So the power is in your hands. If this is something y'all want that makes sense and you think will be helpful, let us know and let Morph Market know. And maybe David will come back and be like, okay, now you guys can be quiet. We're working on it,
Sure.
Message received. Let the man breathe. All right. Well, awesome. Thanks so much to David and Travis for joining us today. Oh, you can see Clover behind me. Look at her. It's a big girl. She's as long as her tank now. That's like a 6-footer. She's such a big girl. I love her. Right? Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it. And make sure that you in the audience like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you thought of this, and if we explained it well, like Ben said, and if it clarified things or maybe let it open more questions. We love that dialogue with you guys. So thanks again. And thanks again to everybody who said hi to us at Tinley. It was awesome seeing you guys. So you guys got anything else before we sign off?
I wanted to share something.
Yeah, what you got?
So, kind of in keeping with the vein of this platform, especially you guys on this platform are very big on education. Something I have done for years and years and years is I have gone to my kids' schools to talk about snakes. And this is a very powerful education tool that we have in this hobby. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was actually invited to come talk at a school that neither of my kids were at, but my name was out there now for doing this. And I wanted, after I did it, the kids all sent me thank you notes. I wanted to read one of them just to kind of really drive home, again, the importance of this for, why education matters with this hobby. So, dear Dr. Travis and Amber, my eldest, came with me to help out. Thank you for not letting the snakes eat us alive. Just kidding. I thought it was really awesome. Snakes are now my favorite animals. You helped me realize how sweet snakes really are. And, they even took the time to draw a little snake on there.
Beautiful.
So, again, if you have the opportunity to do something like this, please take it. This is how we get the next generation of herpers in, but this is also, especially, with the way things are out there in nature, this is a very important thing just for wildlife in general. When people respect animals, when people respect snakes, they start to respect nature more. And it can take something as just as simple as, you being up there holding a snake and talking about it for people to realize these aren't creepy, crawly, nasty things. These, they can have beneficial effects just by being around. People are kind of afraid of rattlesnakes, but, the way I open all of my talks is, the first thing we all need to understand here, the reason I can hold these snakes up here and we can talk about this today is because I know these are safe snakes. If you see a snake in the wild, leave it alone. Don't go try to kill it. That's how you can get hurt. Just leave it alone, And by the time I'm done explaining all these animals to you, hopefully you can see why it is that they're important and they matter. And, again, then you get the kid who, snakes are now my favorite animal. That's a big deal.
Very
it is.
So I wanted to share that, and I thank you guys for letting me use your platform to share that. But
of course,
it's it was a feel good moment for me, and share the feel good moment with everybody.
Oh yeah.
But
that's awesome.
Also, let me get on my soapbox a little about be good about education, because that does nothing but help us.
Exactly. It has often unseen, but world-changing ripple effects. Everybody thinks fondly back to that random guy who walked in and showed off snakes in school. Be that guy. It's a good thing.
Yes, be that guy. It's a good thing. And remember, there may still be kids at the end of the thing that still don't want to pet the snake or see the snake or come close to the snake. That's fine too, okay. Because they still learn. They still learn something, and that's the important part of it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Travis. That is so nice. I love that.
That's
Again,
awesome.
Thank you for letting me co-opt a little bit of your time to be able to share that.
We always have time for that. That's awesome. All right. Well, now we'll call that a day, ending on a really, really good note.
Yes.
And we'll see you guys next time. Outro in 3, 2, 1.